Welcome back, one and all, to this belated edition of This Week in Comic Book Television. As you might be aware, there's a little film called Avengers Infinity War that's out there that kind of took precedence and pushed things back, probably on many a channel, but I know especially mine. And we did the review, and don't worry, no spoilers here. If you haven't seen it, Thanos demands your silence, which is the hashtag going out for this past week. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I do have a spoiler review that it'll be in the end segment here. I always try to put the end card up at the end of the video, should you make it that long. I hope you do. I hope you enjoy the show. If you enjoy the show, will you please let me know? Put it in the comments below. I've been getting a couple of thumbs down, so I'm starting to wonder if I just have one of those hate-filled stalkers that usually successful YouTubers have, or maybe just I've rubbed somebody the wrong way by giving my honest opinion, which is something I'm not afraid to do. All right, let us not waste any more time because we are going to try to get this done before Raw goes on. And we've got 6 shows. And to be honest, I believe last week I said that I think barring Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the shows were not that good. Honestly, this week I think they were all pretty good. Some more than others. It wasn't a 5-star week, all around, but actually some pretty good shows this week. We'll start at the beginning because, and I apologize in advance, not only for having a belated show here. We're airing it if you're listening to this on a rebroadcast, so to speak. We usually air the show on Saturday afternoons. We're doing it on Monday because the Saturday show was my Avengers Infinity War review, spoiler review. So apologies that this is late, and also apologies that because of Infinity War, I really don't remember the shows in detail, apart from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I literally saw 2 hours ago. But so if I seem to be sort of depending on my notes more than just talking off the top of my head, apologies in advance, because I like to try to sound unrehearsed, but I do have notes here that will pretty much help me through the entire process. Okay, so we're going to start at the beginning, which means Monday, which is the first show I seen this week, was Supergirl, which is going to be on later on tonight as well, because it's a Monday. All right, so where we pick up here, Lena is still working on Sam, and Sam is being kept prisoner because Lena is afraid of the danger she possesses not only to herself, but to Ruby, but to Ruby. Gee, it's funny how we have 2 adolescent Rubies at the same time in This Week in Comic Book Television. Of course, the late lamented Duff Cameron version of Ruby on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we still have this Ruby here in Supergirl. She's not in this episode, though. All right, so we got the team playing charades. Supergirl takes out an alien in a bar fight. Pretty much the only really battle she's had lately. This is my problem. This is my problem with Supergirl in a nutshell. I just want to see Supergirl punch a big robot. Is that so wrong? Should I feel wrong that that's what I feel like I want to see and we're not getting much of? There really isn't any one-on-one action between Supergirl and a major villain, at least this season. You could say there's some action in this episode. Definitely was some action, but we don't really get her going up against a big bad. We haven't had that since the first season, I don't think. But again, that's kind of missing here. That's kind of missing. All right, so Mon-El gets his costume, and this was something that I couldn't get a good image of it up. You're gonna have to take my word for it. The image I had up was not, good resolution or whatever, and it wasn't showing up very well. But this is actually the Tyler Hochkin Superman costume, spray painted the reverse colors, and they very blatantly removed the S shield from the chest place. It is so freaking blatant. It is so freaking obvious. And I guess it's obviously to save the budget, but it's a shame they couldn't come around that in some way and make it look more unique, because you can tell it's very clearly a repurposed Superman suit. I also didn't get too much why it was damaged in the first place, because it took like about whatever it's been, 18 episodes, and now all of a sudden Wynn comes out saying, I finished repairing your costume. Well, really? Why was it damaged? I guess in the spaceship or something? I don't know. It's kind of strange. So this was kind of confusing for me as well. Kara wants to be trained to fight like a legionnaire, and Mon-El teaches Kara to use the cape as a weapon. Now, is this something in the Legion of Superheroes comics that I'm unaware of? Because I don't have extensive knowledge of Legion of Superheroes. I saw the animated series that was out, what was it, circa 2000, and I pretty much enjoyed it. I read the comics as a kid, but they really didn't. I mean, I didn't read them extensively, but I'm talking like when I was 7, 8 years old, I was reading Superboy and the Legion, and I didn't really remember too much anything about Cape Fu. So let me know in the comments, is this something that came up periodically in the Legion stories? I don't know. But he teaches her how to use the cape as a weapon. Meanwhile, we have Jean's dad still suffering from memory loss. And this, trance that he puts himself in affects all the members in the DEO, and they start fighting. Wynn is fighting this DEO guy. Kara starts, going off on Mon with some, pent-up hostilities. John stops everything from getting that bad, and he comes clean with the two sisters. Kara quotes Jor-El that the son becomes the father. That was one of the things I really liked a lot whenever they, homage the original Dawn or Superman. So that was nice. Meanwhile, Lena pushes Sam and she snaps, and Lena later shows the playback to her explaining that this is the reason why she's keeping her prisoner, and she later, relents and tries to take this as whatever therapy that Lena is trying to apply to Hart. All right, so Jean confronts his dad, which results in Supergirl raging against Mon-El and eventually releasing all the prisoners, which was kind of strange. As I said, I don't really understand why Supergirl is raging against Mon-El at this point. I mean, the guy's a married man. It's probably not the best thing to kind of have these heart-to-hearts with him. And I also thought that Mon-El had abandoned the persona of being a scumbag like about a full season ago. Wasn't it like halfway through the season that he kind of shaped up and became a respectable cad and not a rake, as they say in 1920s parlance? But it just seemed like trying to rehash something that seemed to be already hashed out to the nth degree. Anyway, so Supergirl and everybody else puts on inhibitor thingies, and they fight off the marauding escapees. Alex uses Black Widow batons, which was pretty cool. Martian Manhunter fights a white Martian, which is something interesting because we don't get to see him actually as the Martian Manhunter often enough this season. Jean's father eventually lets Jean cuff him because he knows that, that was his greatest fear because of the, white Martian imprisoned his entire race. So, this was something that was the reason why he was so raging against everyone, but he apologizes to everyone, which was nice. James finally catches up with Lena, and Mon-El and Kara have another heart-to-heart, and Pestilence is the cliffhanger of the episode. So, yeah, kind of it was a entertaining episode. This wasn't one that was really going to shake the rafters. Nothing really that Supergirl has done this season has been really earth-shaking. I'd like to, run through all the episodes again and try to remember which ones really made the most impact. But they all seem to be kind of coasting along here on a wave. The the Rain episode around Christmas when Rain put the smackdown on Kara. That was kind of the only time we really had a memorable, not only villain fight with the hero, but I don't know. It's like they're trying to sort of, I think, appeal to the female demographic that's more interested in the shipping of Kara and Mon-El, which obviously isn't going to happen. At this point, he's married, and it's just kind of uncomfortable. But I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. That is 4 stars out of 5 for Supergirl this week. Or I should say last week, technically. But, all right, this is a show that finally kind of broke through for me this week. And I really would like to save it for later in the show here, but let's get to it now because it's next to my notes, and I don't have to, move things around quite as much. But this is this week's episode of Legion, and it's basically Sid's story. Oh, she looks so beautiful, doesn't she, right there? But anyway, we've got the story of Sid, and, Legion has been kind of invincible for the most part, and I think mostly this season it's been a little too inaccessible because I don't really know what's going on, and I'm just this close to not caring what's going on. But they did kind of, we got this kind of time travel thing going on where he's trying to listen to Sid from the future, and we really don't know if he should because he'd be helping Farouk, who is, what's his name, Shadow King, I guess, in X-Men lore. And, it's kind of crazy. And even though it's very beautifully shot and, the quirkiness is still there, that is what kind of attracts, people who are into the show, and they still have that in spades, but the story really hasn't been that engaging. So we get to see Sid's story basically from this episode, and it's not just about Sid, though. It's about David, which is really what I think, got me emotionally connected to the episode, because he basically, and they even say this, I think, at some point, is Sisyphus rolling the big boulder up the hill, and every time he thinks he's accomplished this, it rolls back down, and he has to start the cycle all over again and go through the strain of lifting the boulder up the hill again, only to be back at square one the next day. It's the old Greek myth from Greek mythology. So we'll start at the beginning. We see, David's in the snow. He passes an iceberg, an igloo, really, and this is supposed to represent Sid being born, and she's crawling out of the igloo and being born. She crawls out of the igloo a grown woman, but then gets born. Isn't that a title of a Jet album? Yeah, it was a good album. But she gets born, and it basically has David witnessing her childhood, where she's pestered by annoying children when she's a little girl. Her mother can't really touch her as a baby or as a child, and she's, sleeping with her with a pillow in between them, which is, sort of what happened with her and David in the last season. And it keeps coming back to this art gallery where she's an adult and she doesn't seem to recognize him, and he keeps trying to determine from this art gallery setting what it is that he's supposed to learn to wake her up out of this catatonic state that he managed to wake up Paul and Melanie. I think those are their names. And so he's trying to do this desperately with her, but she keeps sending him back to relive her life over again until he understands what it is that will connect with her and bring her out of it. It's very interesting. She kisses a guy in order to trade bodies with him and beat up her tormentors as a teenager. Eventually, he sees this. And it's weird, but very amusing and entertaining that he goes back again and again and again to relive this entire cycle, probably 7 or 8 times. And he says, I'm not going to give up. And it's really sweet in that way because, he's willing to sacrifice, his own life because he's under as well, trying to revive her. And he's not just going to give up and keep going through this entire cycle over and over and over again. And he tries to talk to her as a child, but she says it's cheating. And he has to learn something. And it's also, I think, kind of a allegory about the bigger picture of, honestly, men trying to understand women and trying to understand what they're trying to tell you without them telling you. And of course, as a guy, that also appealed to me on that level. Um, Meanwhile, everybody else has woken up from their catalepsy or whatever. And so he thinks she's testing him to prevent him from seeing the real her, but no, he has to try again. He refuses to give up, and she's sort of become like a punk rock rebel at some stage in her life. I think they said she was 15. Now, this is the part where it kind of lost me, because we actually get to see the story that Sid told us last season about how she traded places with her mother to have a romantic experience with her stepfather or her mother's boyfriend. I don't remember exactly how it was communicated, and of course you know that's kind of upsetting to see. That's treading area there where it might have been better off as a story that we didn't actually have to see it, but it was powerful enough that it kind of was the catalyst needed for David to break the cycle, because it's basically kind of the trauma she'd gone through her entire life. Because you remember, her powers are that when she touches somebody, or apparently something, any living creature, she transfers to their body. So he confronts her again with the right answer, and she says, basically that her scars are her armor, and they need to be fighters, not lovers. Not, love isn't going to save them. It's basically that they have to be strong in a time of weakness, and that the world is going to be weak, and they need to be strong. Basically, that kind of stuff. I don't really have it written down word for word, but that was kind of the idea. The episode ends with Lenny being dragged back in handcuffs. Which, how did she get away from Farouk? And because I think Farouk basically just had her mentally still around in his mind. Her mind was still somehow linked to his. We'll probably see how that turns out, the next episode. But anyhow, I found this one very compelling. Like I said, the only thing I didn't understand or didn't like or whatever was I didn't understand how when I don't remember it ever being like this last season, but whenever Sid touches somebody and she trades bodies with them, she takes the place of where that other body was. Like, for instance, when she kisses the guy and the boy, and he beats up the girls with a stick, and then once she changes back, her body is standing in the place where the boy was. And the same thing with the stepfather and mother. I don't remember that being like that before, and it doesn't really make any sense, metaphysically speaking. I mean, the mind can transfer, I can buy that, but why does her body transfer? Her body literally transferred to being with stepfather. And that was kind of strange. I didn't really get that. So, I mean, it didn't make much sense. And like I said, that was kind of troubling. But this was really the only episode so far of Legion this season that had me in rapt attention from beginning to end. So I can't give it a completely failing mark, considering it was so strong. So I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars out of 5. That's 4.5 stars out of 5 for Legion. And it got kind of close to being episode of the week. I don't think I can give it episode of the week because I was a little more impressed by another show, which we will get to in a moment. But first, let us carry on here now to Krypton. That's right, Krypton, with a Krypton, as Christopher Reeve would say. Let's see. This has been really ramping up in recent weeks. This was also a very good episode. Last week was a very strong showing. We had the background of Jaina. So we when we left off, Zod was telling, General Zod was telling his, mother from the past, because he's coming back from the future. He was telling Lyta about being her son, and Adam shows up and he freaks out about Zod being there and he wants to kill him. Meanwhile, Little Rom, I think that's her name, Little Rom, is tested by the voice of Rao. And the voice of Rao it basically gives her the option of joining her mother or continuing to live as his, I don't know what she is, his servant, his priestess, his, I don't know, whatever she is, but that was kind of an interesting subplot because we completely dropped the plot about them two last week. Meanwhile, Nyssa tells Vex their plans to. Nyssa tries to tell Jaina. I'm trying to remember her name because I don't have it in my notes here. I don't know why. Nyssa tries to get Jaina on board with the plot to overthrow Voice of Raoul, but then again, she wants to get Dem, or I believe is his name. Again, I'm not sure about their names. Excuse me. She wants to get him on board, and she goes to get him on board, and he backs her. And it's a good scene between them two because he's like, Jaina, she means business. And he's like, if I say no, am I going to leave this room alive? And she's like, we're going to find out. And I thought that was like so cool because like Jaina is just not a force to take lightly. You know what I mean? She's a force to be reckoned with, to be sure. And he knows this right off the bat. And he's like, if I say no, am I going to leave this room? And, it's really cool because he actually has his heart in it. I mean, he's not doing this out of, coercion or anything, but he has a great respect for her. And of course, he's in love with Lyda, which apparently he's going to marry and have Zod, I imagine, because it really doesn't make any sense otherwise. I don't know. Anyway, Zod says that, General Zod, of course, says Brainiac always stole Kandor, causing the planet to explode. So Zod wants to stop him from stealing Kandor. Lyda disarms Adam, and Seg has both Zod and Adam cuffed and questioned. So this was really interesting because it's like, who is he going to believe? Whose side is he going to listen to most? Now, unfortunately, he seems to take Zod's side, even though I guess maybe it's because we know Adam more, but it seems like Adam makes the most sense. But I think that might be because it's difficult because as a viewer, we're prejudiced into thinking, well, Superman's in danger and we've got to save Superman. But looking at it from Seg's point of view, I mean, he's thinking of his whole entire planet blowing up and probably, nobody but his grandson surviving. This is kind of something that would be swaying your opinion of the situation. So Zod has a weapon that he wants to reveal that's hidden somewhere. Meanwhile, Adam didn't say there was no exploded planet, and he thinks Zod is a threat, and that Brainiac must be allowed to take Kandor in order for the history to unfold as it did. And Seg is torn by this. Now, I like one of my favorite parts was when Zod was talking to Seg, and he says that he was friends with his son, but enemies with his grandson because he felt that his grandson didn't embrace his heritage. In other words, he was friends with Jor-El, but eventually, the falling out, of course. But then when Kal-El comes around, he doesn't respect him because he didn't embrace his heritage and fight for being a Kryptonian more than becoming human. He's adapted to Earth and become human for all intents and purposes. Now, there's a holiday pardoning, and Black Zeros are being released, particularly a bomb maker, which becomes important. Meanwhile, Vex wants to kill a soldier, but Jaina wants to talk him out of it because this guy is suspect of what's going on by the Black Zero guy getting released. So Dem tries to put him off, but he goes to Jaina. Bad move because she kills him because obviously she ain't gonna let him talk because he's suspicious and he's digging and whatever. Meanwhile, Adam is found by the Frost people there, and he thinks on Zod, and they go to help him take on Zod. Uh, Zod, this was also a good scene. Zod says his mom was bitter about losing Kandor, and she trained him to be a weapon pretty much like Jaina trained Lyta. And, the concept repeats in the future, so to speak. Seg and Lyta ponder if they have a future, because, like I said, obviously, it looks like it's going to be Lyta and Dem having Zod. And that's where I kind of think the problem is with the race thing. You really can't, of course, if this concept is to work at all, you can't really change the future. Superman still has to be born, and you can't really sell me on having, a black Superman if, the Zod and L families, intertwine. It's like, it's just going to create a lot of confusion. And it kind of makes you feel like, if they thought this through, are we supposed to be thinking that maybe the House of Zod and the House of L were going to intermarry? That would kind of reflect on Jor-El and Superman. And, in all incarnations of Superman, he's white. This is an incarnation where all Zods are black. General Zod is black. Again, I'm not for changing the race of characters. This kind of doesn't feel like it's a huge change, to be totally honest. The only thing that feels like a change here is General Zod, and he kind of feels like, you know, he's playing the role pretty much as well as, anybody could. So that's not really a problem. But what I'm trying to say is, I think the concept of having some kind of drama and suspense over will these houses merge is pretty much taken away, because we know that racially Superman is going to be white. And so it's going to be Seg and either Vex, or maybe there is still a woman to be, introduced, that is going to be the grandmother of Kal-El. Now, apparently, he's created some kind of biological, offspring with Nyssa, which they don't name, or at least, I don't know, the computer matrix names it something, and so they don't name it as Jor-El. Kind of, I don't know exactly if that's going to turn out to be Jor-El. Like I said before, I never really liked this concept of Krypton, where everything is a sterile world, where babies are born out of test tubes and stuff. I've never really liked that concept. So, of course, this is written by same guy that wrote Man of Steel. So, obviously it's going to have that. Anyhow, let me get back to the story here. So Rom chooses to stay and serve Voice of Ral. He wants a public function, and this kind of makes the coup difficult, because now they really don't know what to do. Meanwhile, Seg and Zod both have to draw blood to open the vault. Adam tries to stop them, but it's too late, and it's Doomsday. Now, will he ever be released from this pod? We don't know, but at least he's there in the flesh, but he is not awoken. So the Frost Lady shows up and blames the both of them for Doomsday, the House of Zod and the House of El. Zod flips out and starts shooting. So the four of them escape, and that Adam with the two Zods and Seg. Seg sides with Zod, but makes him promise no Doomsday. He doesn't want them to unleash that. So Dem attempts to have the Voice of Ral assassinated, but he takes off his helmet and tentacles them all in the head, which will either brainwash them or kill them, I suppose. Probably brainwash them, because don't we need Dem still alive? I don't know. But I think we also have, was Jaina also? I don't remember. Did she get tentacles? I don't know. But anyway, so this was a good episode, a really good episode. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it is ramping up. I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars out of 5, I think, as well. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5 for Krypton this past week. Alrighty. So, next up we have Arrow. Let's take a look at Arrow this week. And, boy, Katie Cassidy's doing double duty as Black Siren all over the place, isn't she, this season? Well, they said that she was going to, so that's not a surprise. But they've given her a lot of stuff to do, and we're going to see her again in The Flash. But first off, Green Arrow goes to Moscow, and he tries to placate the Bratva, I guess, by delivering a drug dealer boss or something to the Bratva to get back his status as captain or something. Meanwhile, Renee comes back to the show, which I'm happy for, but apparently this is sort of like bringing him back to write him out, one of those type deals, because we couldn't just have Curtis adopting his daughter. We got to put him back in the show. Diggle is leading Argus now. And one of the more interesting things was Richard Dragon, or I guess Ricardo Diaz, as they're calling him here, wants to talk to Quentin. He wants Black Siren to set him up with Quentin. And so she sort of, sets up this meeting with Quentin. And the way he very harshly sort of reacts to her setting him up, that was really something, because he's a good actor, that Paul Blackthorne. And I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because we didn't even get to the meeting yet. But the meeting, of course, he wants him to, sell some property or something to redistribute some land or something. And Quentin eventually does, because Black Siren is basically on his case saying, look, I don't want to see you get killed. I don't care what you think of me, but I don't want you to get killed over this. And so he kind of relents. But he relents because he remembers at the end of it, because I just love this relationship this season. They really have done a good job with this, like I said, because it's it's not forgetting where Quentin came from, because we got to remember, he actually brings it up himself that he worked for Damien Dark. And he kind of uses that as the motivation to say that he did things he didn't want to do, and he can put himself in her place, that she's doing things that she really doesn't want to do. Because she does come out and say that she's basically with Diaz mostly because he's the top dog, and she's not going to get anywhere opposing him. So this was a pretty powerful subplot, and this is another reason why I think this episode this week was a lot stronger than most. I'm still torn between whether this is going to be the episode of the week, but I think I'm still going to go with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But this was a good episode. So anyway, we've got Ollie going to Anatole. Anatole's watching baseball. Felt very like Godfather-ish or something. He's got all his guys in there, and he's watching baseball, American baseball. So Ollie tells him that he paid his debt, and he wants them to be partners again. He wants them to be buddies, because he paid the debt where the Bratva shunned Anatole because of his friendship with Ollie, and Ollie felt like this was the way to forge that bond again, where he's settled debts for Anatole, so to speak. And he got the Bratva knife, which is what we see in this picture here, where he it's a token to convince Anatole that he does have the Bratva's backing. Anatole tases him and tells him he's staying with Diaz. Meanwhile, we have the Arrow Team 2, or Canary Team, or whatever you want to call it. They want to go after Diaz, and they get caught between a gang war, and Diggle saves them. And Diggle apologizes, which was nice, because it's something Oliver should have done probably on day one. And he joins them in a temporary capacity, let's say. Renee gets the yips, and he's starting to have second thoughts. I don't think he's going to stick around for long. Anatole wants to deliver Oliver to Diaz, and Diaz ends up beating up Ollie, and this causes Anatole to accuse him of weakness. So Diaz agrees to fight him, and the loser gets out of town. It's like a loser get out of town match from wrestling. Oliver has him, but Diaz cheats by stabbing him, and so it's like kind of the old, what did you expect from me? I'm the bad guy type thing. And Oliver later thanks Anatole, and Anatole wants to help him escape. But Diaz has Oliver arrested, and we're going to go through that yet again. Meanwhile, Diggle declines joining the team. Team Curtis, I guess, or Team Black Canary. I don't know what you want to call that. Curtis wants Renee to rejoin, but he hesitates. Zoe, his daughter, ends up telling him to fight. And that's kind of the thing. These kids, they want to see their old man become a superhero. You know, who wouldn't, I suppose? There's danger, but hey, you got a father that's a superhero. That's what he does, I guess. So apparently Renee is going to be the wild dog going forward. I just hope this doesn't mean they're going to kill him off, because I don't really see him going too far in this. I think this will be his last season, which is sad because he was my favorite, of the extended Team Arrow. And I thought Curtis could have gone, 2 seasons ago after, what was he in the 3rd season, right? Was he in the 3rd? No, he was in the 4th season. Yeah, 4th season was fine. That was enough of Curtis. I kind of thought he could go after that, but they still kept bringing him back. I want to have a stable Black Canary in the show, and who knows if they're going to write her out as well. Who knows what's going to happen in the future here. I'm kind of just concerned. I'm concerned what they're doing going forward. But as long as they have Arrow, now this kind of also is one of the problems that I've always had, which is I've always said that there's the 2 appearance rule. The superhero should be in the costume twice an episode, at least twice an episode. And this episode, of course, doesn't do that. I don't know why they decided to change Oliver out of the Green Arrow costume. I guess it's because he turns him over to the police at the end and has him arrested, which I don't really understand on what charge. They still are doing the investigation of him being of being a vigilante. I don't know. Anyhow, I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars out of 5. 4.5 stars out of 5 for Arrow this week. It's a very strong episode. I liked it. Like I said, I like the subplot as well with Black Siren and Quentin. All right, let's get on to The Flash now. The Flash. And it was the return of Captain Cold. And this is the Wentworth Miller farewell tour, where he's hitting all the shows, and the final show on his stop is the show that he started on, The Flash. This is the one that started it all. So, as I predicted, the thinking cap is making Harry lose his intelligence. He's got to pay the price mentally for, using a performance enhancer, so to speak. And, it's the dark matter, really, I think, is what did this, because he was doing all right when he was just using it. He was addicted, but he was just using it too much. But it was not until he used the dark matter. Barry and Iris is in therapy again. We still go back to therapy. Oh, gosh. And I'm not necessarily against therapy. It's not like I'm saying, oh, why are they doing this? But this is kind of, it's different in television. We really don't need to see the people in therapy. That's kind of the point of being in therapy, is it's like solitude. It's, you're alone and you're able to, unless it brings something to the story. I think these are conversations that he could have with Iris. We don't really need the therapist to do this. Anyway, so the Thinker shuts Maurice down. Mrs. DeVoe. No time for love, Dr. Jones. He's completely emotionless now, and Maurice is... I don't know if she's still drugged. Apparently, she's supposed to be not drugged anymore, because I don't know where that went. She was really angry with him, more afraid, I suppose, of him for good reason when she found out she was drugged. But now she's sort of like, romantic, got romantic designs on him. And understandably, now he finally looks like her husband again, even though technically he's in Ralph's body. Ew. But, she still wants a romance with him, and he shuts her down really fast. He doesn't want her to think, which is the ironic thing. He seems to be wanting this plan called the Enlightening, or the Enlightenment or something, but he doesn't want Maurice to think on her own. So that's interesting. Now, Cisco, meanwhile, wants to build a thinking cap for himself because, of course, as they say, 2 heads are better than 1. Harry kind of protests it, but he can't stop Cisco without telling him the truth. And so he kind of doesn't. Captain Cold then joins the team, Flash and Cisco, Vibe, excuse me. go to recruit him on Earth X because it's the only Captain Cold apparently, that's free to them now. Well, they know him, of course, from Crisis on Earth X. Black Siren follows him from Earth X, so she's called Siren X in this continuity. Cold is going to marry Ray because, of course, they're both gay. But this thing kind of makes me think that Ray is not going to get his own TV show like I thought. He apparently didn't go over too big. I thought they were going to try to spin him off into his own show. Now, I think the CW kind of feels like, well, we've got so many DC superhero shows. Are we really going to try to fit in the Ray with everything else? And the other problem being, I don't think they want it to be the first DC CW show to fail. And I don't think the Ray is known enough to succeed. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say at the beginning here is I don't think it would succeed having Cold marry Ray because you're going to have, unless, of course, they kill off Cold, which is very possible. But I don't think you have, I'm trying to think of the actor's name because I just said it a minute ago, Wentworth Miller. I don't think you have him as a co-star on Ray's show. So either he's going to get killed off if they really are serious about giving the Ray a show of his own. Otherwise, he ain't getting a show because you're not going to get the Captain Cold and Ray show. As I said before, I think maybe it would be a good idea to have a Ray show because I think they have, and I've made no bones about saying this, even though it's probably not going to be popular, but I think they forced too much, gay characters in the shows to try to, make political statements, to make SJW statements. Like we have to have a gay character that's a prominent member of each show. In fairness, I think they've done it well on Arrow. Curtis is gay, and he even has a relationship going on in this season of Arrow. Because even when it was going on back when he was married in, I think, whatever it was, the 4th season, was it? When all that was going down. It wasn't very intrusive. It was just something that was going on as a side plot, and it didn't take up too much time. Then we've had things like the Supergirl relationship between Alex and Maggie Sawyer, which just was insufferable because first it was a back-to-school special about Alex having to realize that she was lesbian, then the relationship that, was so wonderful that no one would dare speak its name, and it's just like it just went on and on too long, and it got to be tiresome. That one especially. And I feel now they're going in the same direction with Sarah and what's her name, Ava, and it's going to be sort of the same thing there, where it's going to be just this romance that gets foisted into every episode because young lesbians in love, that's wonderful. What we had in Black Lightning wasn't too bad either. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not that CW can't write, a successful or a positive gay or lesbian relationship in their shows, but when they put all their chips on it and try to make it the greatest, they appeal to the shippers. It's the greatest storyline of all time because the shippers demand it. That's when they have problems, and that's kind of, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but that's kind of what I fear is happening. And if you had a show like The Ray, which would, of course, be for that demographic and give, gay and lesbian people a show that, we could have whatever type relationship you want on that show. I mean, if it didn't have to be just a gay relationships, it could be lesbian relationships on that show too. And let it sink or swim on its own merits instead of trying to continue to appeal to, a gay relationship on each and every show when it doesn't necessarily fit on each and every show. So anyway, Harry tries the cap on Cisco. It fails, but Cisco wants to continue. Meanwhile, now this is part of my problem with this version of Captain Cold. I never liked the good guy version of Captain Cold. I thought the original version of Captain Cold was the best. Even when he started getting pretty noble at the end of the first season of Legends, he still came off as a believable Leonard Snart. But here, it just feels like it's too much Wentworth Miller and not enough Leonard Snart. And I guess he's a good guy in this planet, so that's fine. But he's basically the Dr. Phil of the Earth X. He's not the Leonard Snart of Earth X. He was trying to, psychoanalyze Mick in his appearance on Legends of Tomorrow. He basically does the same here for Barry. He's kind of trying to get him to embrace his grief over the death of Ralph, which is something he hasn't embraced yet, which is what leads to the big finish of this episode. So I don't really see him in that character. Like I said, I think this is just basically because Wentworth Miller was so successful and so big and they wanted him involved. They basically gave him carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And it's like, I want Captain Cold to have a, gay husband, so he gets a gay husband. I want Captain Cold to be understanding and have a Dr. Phil-like approach with his friends. And so that's what they did. That's what it feels like to me anyway. It doesn't feel to me like a genuine character. It feels like, sort of not a deus ex machina, but, it's sort of like this is what the lead character needs in this case. And so we're going to facilitate him with a character in order to, bring him out of his shell. Black Siren, the Siren X or whatever she's called, ends up coming to Earth, causing problems. She overhears what their plan is because obviously the plan is they want to get Fallout Boy and save him from DeVoe because they think that DeVoe is going to use him for his nefarious purposes. I don't remember. Meanwhile, Cold does his Dr. Phil routine on Caitlin because Caitlin's missing Frost, which I still say is pure bunk. I don't buy it for a minute that she would miss her, but she's like had this kind of awakening where she feels like this is a part of her that she needs, and probably at some point in the future they're going to merge personalities, which I definitely don't want to see. But as I said before, I've gone over this 1,000 times. DeVoe confronts the Flash in the lockup reminded me of X-Men 3. Remember when Magneto's getting out all the mutants and stuff? But he tries the tuning fork and it fails. Given Ralph's powers, it's not effective on him now. Siren X shows up to spoil the show, and she takes Joe hostage, Joe and Caitlin. Meanwhile, Harry ruins Cisco's thinking cap and comes clean that it's given him brain damage, so to speak. DeVoe is upset that he didn't call Barry's reaction, which is strange because, of course, being the thinker, this is one of the few times he didn't think ahead. Maurice tries to get him to see that he's oblivious to emotions, and he's thinking of things only logically and not the natural reactions people would have out of emotion. Snart confronts Barry and basically tells him, if you don't embrace this problem, you're going to get people killed. I've seen people get killed, and basically the whole spiel. The Siren X takes Joe and Caitlin to the police station to blast Fallout to, I guess, kill all the cops. It's not very clearly understood how she survives being around Fallout Boy when he's got his powers out like that, because they took an injection, Caitlin and Joe, I guess everybody else did on the team, that prevents them from, getting radiation poisoning for at least a couple hours. Psychotechno babble, something like that. All right, so basically it ends up when the reason why they want the Captain Cold on the team is because of the freeze gun, really, but they get the freeze gun and freeze Fallout Boy, and that's what keeps him from exploding. And Barry then takes out what's her name? Siren X. I want to say Black Siren, but I think it's called Siren X. So Snart and Caitlin both freeze Fallout Boy. So anyhow, Barry finally grieves and Joe confronts him. Of course, Joe and Barry, that's one of the great relationships in this show. It always has been. And we don't get a whole lot of it here, but, just for a moment, it was nice. Snart bids them all farewell. Caitlin misses Frost. She thinks she's still in there. I guess she can try to draw her out, which is, I guess, the thing that in her genes or something. Harry wants to leave the show, but Cisco convinces him to stay and confront the problem. He reminds him about Jesse and how, he was, I guess, the mentor for Jesse that made her this great hero that she is. And they're going to fix this, and they're going to tell the team. Barry and Iris in therapy again at the end. And apparently Mrs. DeVoe becomes more and more disenfranchised with her husband, and the plan all along is starting to weigh on her. All right, so I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. It had a bunch of hiccups. It was still very watchable. That's why I'm giving it 4 stars. Mediocre episodes are like, yeah, I can give it or take it. This I would recommend. I would say catch up on The Flash if you haven't seen this episode, but it still had some weak links that like I said, I don't know if this season's been kind of confusing, kind of confounding, because it had some high points that I really liked, but it's also had some points that are really, really aggravating. I think I would compare this season to season 3 of Arrow, where it had some great ideas, but not executed very well. And that's the way I feel about this. It's got some great ideas, not exactly executed very well. So 4 stars out of 5 for The Flash this week. That's 4 stars out of 5 for The Flash. And now we've got our episode of the week, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this kind of disappointed me as well. I was all set all the way through this episode to give it 5 stars, but at the very end, kind of disappointed. We will get to that in a second when we get to the end of the episode. Now, Coulson wants to send the gravitronium into the sun. I might have missed something because Deke is carrying around this flask of gravitonium for the whole episode. And then, meanwhile, there's still some in the chamber at the end of the episode. I don't really know what they were trying to do with the gravitronium then if they didn't have it all to be shot into the sun. In great Marvel fashion, the heroes are all arguing with each other, which I loved. I love this. Daisy confronts Yo-Yo about killing Ruby. Yo-Yo, is saying, look, I did what needed to be done. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it, in other words. Daisy is, the team degenerates into arguing, and it's like Daisy can't, accuse Fitz because we've got Yo-Yo doing the same thing. And so, like, the discipline is breaking down for, Daisy being the lead. Because Fitz did a terrible thing, but he did it because it was what needed to be done. Yo-Yo did a terrible thing, but she did what needed to be done. And, they're going back and forth, and Yo-Yo outright says, look, we didn't elect you to be the team leader. And Phil is the boss. And that's when Phil sort of steps in and says, look, I want everybody to do their jobs. And that's why Phil is so great. He's just basically, he's like, I don't want to hear the infighting. Just go in there and do your job. And the guy in the background there, he's like, does this always happen? And, Piper, which is the chief red shirt, was like, the plans, yes, the fighting, no. Something to that effect. So May has a plan, and she enlightens Daisy. Daisy's job is to take Robin and her mother and Creel off to the Candyman, which was Mac's buddy, because he knows a lot about the Deathlock program, and May has had him on the down low, on the QT, trying to facilitate a cure, I guess, for Coulson, or just find out something about the Deathlock program that will help him. We get to that again later. Fitz says the only way to know if the future changes is if Deke is blinked from existence, which I didn't really understand that. Another thing that came to my mind when he was saying blinked from existence was, how does Infinity War deal with this show? I'm not going to give any spoilers out, but usually, or at least in the past, there's been some kind of reflection about what's going on in the world showing up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we haven't heard anything in this show about Thanos attacking. Are we supposed to, because the time is going back and forth here, is this, they're going back and forth from the past, does this mean they're exempt from what's going on in Avengers Infinity War? Because we're not hearing anything about Thanos. Of course, Thanos, yeah, he's in Wakanda. Maybe that's why. I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess, if something happens in the future. All right, so Talbot, meanwhile, is frantic, and he talks to Coulson and tells him apparently some numbers about where the aliens are going to meet them. Um, let me see. I messed up my notes. Phil gets the place locked down for 15 years. That was so funny, that scene where he sets, the bunker they're in. It's called the Lighthouse, is run by this guy from the 70s in a holographic form, and he says, press 1 for, extinction level events, and so on and so forth. So he presses 2, which is a nuclear attack, and he didn't wait for the third option, which was an alien invasion, and May is like telling him, you always listen to the entire menu. So that was pretty funny. So Coulson interacts with the bad guy leader. I don't know who these bad guys are, to be totally honest with you. They look like there's some kind of they look like an alien race that's like freaky, but then again, with talons and claws or whatever. But then again, this lead guy looks pretty cool. I mean, he doesn't look like he's a freak or anything. I don't even know his name. I forget. I call him Orson because obviously Hale's in contact with him all the time at the end of the episode, like Nanu, Mork and Mindy. For those of you kids that are below the age of like 35, just Google it. One of the great scenes also in the episode, Yo-Yo and Mac have a confrontation in the hallway there, whatever. He says she's messed up, and from her time in the past. He says that Shield turns the other cheek. They're a Shield, and going for revenge was wrong. She says that May made the tough choice before, and she did the same, and nobody thinks less of May, which is true. Like I said, it's the same thing with Arrow, where I like that they're going back to the past episodes on the show. They're not just going around this issue and skirting around the issue and not confronting that, some characters have acted like this in the past, or this is where this character actually was at one time, and how can you act like it's different now? And May, comes to her after the confrontation there with Mac, and May gives her some advice and comfort, so to speak. And it was really nice. I mean, I never thought, to be honest with you, I never thought I was going to care about Yo-Yo and Mac's relationship, because it kind of felt like to me originally it came out of nowhere. It felt to me like, well, now that Yo-Yo's a member of the team, we've got to socialize her, and she has to have a buddy, and a buddy / romantic partner or something. And it was like, well, Mac's nominated because who else is there really? I mean, we've got Fitzsimmons from the beginning, and Phil and May is a undercurrent of a relationship there. And Deke just came into the show, so it was kind of established just out of necessity. But I really like them together because it looks very much like they're not going to stay together, because it looks like the future. And like I said, I love the way Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. writes their future past, paragons here, or whatever, paradrones. It's very difficult to change the future in their world. And it looks very much like this is what happened and how she lost him, because she ended up killing Ruby and started getting drastic. Now, at the end of the day here, Yo-Yo spills to May and Coulson when she finds out that May informs them that Daisy's on a black ops mission, silenced mission, to try to save Coulson from whatever it is he's dying from. So Yo-Yo spills that her future self did, in fact, tell her that the only way to change the future is to allow Coulson to die and not try to save him. Meanwhile, May doesn't like this idea because she thinks that Robin's prophecy that Coulson puts the pieces together is the truth. That's the way to go. That Coulson's necessary in order for this, terrible future to be resolved. Deke, meanwhile, hides while the invaders go through the red shirts like water, and makes his way to the team, and he warns them that they're powerful, they can see in the dark, they got claws. Meanwhile, Candyman gives Daisy the last centipede. Remember way back in the first season that John Garrett had this, and he tells her that he had the formula that healed him as well, and he only has the one centipede device, but he's got the formula. But he doesn't know where it is. He's got the schematic, so to speak, or whatever. So meanwhile, Yo-Yo gets Talbot out of lockup. Deke saves Fitz, and they're trapped inside with the aliens wrecking their only way out. Now, if I didn't mention it, this was the bunker here is completely locked down because he picked the wrong, choice there on the menu, and so they can't get out. They're trapped in for 15 years. And it was pretty funny the way he announces that over the PA system. Phil is so fun in this still. He's just so great. Coulson, and moreover, of course, Clark Gregg is so great in this role, and Coulson is so great in this show. It's just impossible to see this show without him. I don't know if it wouldn't survive. I don't think. If they were thinking of writing him out, I think you just end the show because I don't think you can have this show without Coulson. So Yo-Yo gets Talbot and puts him in the room with Gemma. Talbot is like still mental. He wants to redeem himself. Talbot ices Gemma and gets into Captain Rogers' pod and takes the gravitronium injection. This is something that is kind of strange because this is what Ruby and the Absorbing Man wanted, but they couldn't do. So he gets the full injection of this, and it doesn't drive him crazy, and it doesn't make him, unstable, so to speak. Meanwhile, Phil gets the shotgun axe from Mac. That was cute. And the team makes a stand. But a jacked up Talbot comes in and saves the day and crushes the baddies like crumpled up balls of paper. And the post-credit scene, so to speak, for the show was Daisy digging up her mom's grave because somehow that holds the key to Coulson's future, to his survival, to his being healed. And in the, not so subtle way, they tell us that Talbot is going to be Gravitron. This is the only thing I don't like. And you know why. If you've listened to any of my videos in the past, I don't like them crapping on Talbot. And he looks like Gravitron from the comics somewhat. But the thing is Talbot was supposed to be a Bruce Banner adversary. And they ruined him by taking him and making him another character. I don't like them making him Gravitron. Talbot was supposed to be Bruce's rival for Betty's affection. And now the MCU has completely ruined and destroyed that, and I don't like it. Otherwise, it's a good episode. I say it's episode of the week because it had me riveted. I really liked it. I think, as I said, Krypton, Arrow, Legion, all good episodes this week, but I'm going to give Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the episode of the week again. So 4.5 stars out of 5 for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week. That's 4.5 stars out of 5 for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And thank you for this great 75th edition of Johnny Torch Live. Thank you for being with us. 75 big editions of me sitting in front of the camera and the microphone. Well, the camera's off, but in front of the microphone and just getting to talk about the stuff I loved with you, hopefully being there on the other end. And just, it's just a great privilege that I have to be able to do this show. And, like I said, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you do listen to the show. And if you do, let me know by telling me in the comments below. Hit that like button. Let me feel some love. Come on, give me the love, people. And smash that subscribe button because I've lost a few more subscribers because I think apparently YouTube cleans house every couple of months and they drop dead accounts. So some people probably just don't use their account and, accounts go away. Also, check out the link in the description below. I want you to like and check out the Bullets Bourbon website that I have there with the free preview. Check it out. I know you're going to like it. You get to see a look at some of the Bullets Bourbon universe in the free preview. I'm going to be at PillCon 2018, May the 19th at the Peabody Institute Library, where we're going to have the second annual PillCon. I'll be there with some goodies. I'll be there with loads of comics, The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon, still working on the 5th issue, which is taking terribly long, but all good things come to those who wait. And of course, a couple of weeks after that, we will have another appearance on the Johnny Torch convention circuit. at the Radisson Hotel for KidsCon on June the 10th in Radisson Hotel in Nashua, New Hampshire. So make sure you check out these events. I'll be spanning 2 states, Peabody, Massachusetts, May 19th at the PillCon convention, and in Nashua, New Hampshire, in the Radisson Hotel on June the 10th. Of course, as always, check out my link in the description for my website where you will find more information, directions, and the like about my convention appearances this year. I feel bad that I haven't been able to get to too many more convention appearances, but I got so much to do. It's going to be tough to get to so many of them because I've got a couple more in the works that I haven't heard from yet. So, yeah, until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.